You've unlocked a Roundtable.
Welcome to the Lost Levels Roundtable discussion of The Big Short. My name's Chris Levon. With me as always is Alex.
Hello.
And we just watched The Big Short.
Correct. We did do that.
Yeah,
that was a thing that happened earlier.
We watched it after Revenant, so I was happy that we got to see something that had a lighter tone to it. Something that had some comedic value in it.
Yeah, okay,
something that was just... It was a nice change. Although it is still a long movie.
It is a long movie, but unlike The Revenant, I felt like I was more engaged in this one.
Yeah, this movie grabs you because it breaks the fourth wall.
Yes, it does break the fourth wall, and that I always appreciate a good fourth wall breaking, but also just the narrative structure of it and what the movie itself is trying to do is a lot more compelling.
What do you mean?
The basic subject of the matter about these people following the whole housing development bubble that's about to pop, and what they're seeing and how they're seeing it and what they're trying to bring to light almost.
Yeah, and I felt that they masterfully did that.
They did it really well because for a simpleton like me who doesn't understand any of that shit, they were able to describe it in such a way that I was able to follow and go, oh, okay, this is actually really interesting. I see what's happening here, and I'm interested in seeing how this plays out.
Yeah, and it kept you engaged by breaking that fourth wall a little bit and giving it a lighter tone because it's fully aware of the fact that it's trying to cover a lot of dense material.
Yeah, material you would normally see in like a documentary type format.
And it simplifies it and makes it stupid enough for people to understand it.
Yes, which I really appreciate because I'm stupid when it comes to this.
Yeah, that's something I really appreciate about it because it shows our society and it paints our society in a very accurate way, and it's something that we need to be more cognizant of because of the fact that like all this shit happens every
this
day.
Is also another true story.
Right.
And it's a very recent true story that we're still living through.
For the most part, yeah. I mean, we know a little bit more about it. I think we'll get into it more in the spoiler section. By the way, the first part of the... I'm 0 for 2 today for doing these. And so at the beginning of our podcast, we always talk about a disclaimer saying that our roundtable discussions are spoiler-free up until after the credits, where we go into a full-blown spoiler section. That's where we cover spoilers. So here we try to do a straight up review. So if you haven't watched the movie yet, you can listen to us. We won't spoil it for you. And then if you want to be spoiled, hang on after credits. There's going to be the spoilers. Yeah. So that being said, yeah, it covers that huge area of our society where I think I love the fact that they kind of did that and kind of just like, hey, idiots, pay more attention to what shit that's going on.
Yeah.
Where
this is how we're getting screwed.
Right.
Here you go.
And I love that aspect to it. They'll show like just random clips, like popular internet stuff during that time.
Right.
And people like stuff like, oh, I remember that. Oh, I remember that. Oh, shit. Yeah, that was totally it. But then I'm like, they're showing that to show that I'm an idiot for paying attention to that stuff.
Yeah.
Rather than looking at the big story, like what's actually going on with our society.
Right.
That's how we kind of just lose that. And you know, banks and government kind of know that. So they let us do that shit. Like, yeah, we'll just do this shit behind the scenes. No one's paying attention.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's what this movie is about, essentially. It's like, hey, no one's really paying attention to this shit. Someone pays attention, and
they try to capitalize off of it.
Yeah, and it's interesting.
And word gets around, and you see everyone trying to capitalize off of it.
Yeah, great performances all around, too.
Totally. Yeah.
I enjoyed these performances a lot. I thought they did an awesome job. Like Christian Bale, Steve Carell, and
Christian Bale playing another different character than you're used to seeing him, and does it really well.
Yeah, that's the thing about him. He likes taking on different roles, obviously, because he does so many different things. He has a wide range of stuff that he tries and does. And he manages to pull it off a lot more than a lot of people do.
Correct. Yeah, yeah. And, he does such a good job that, sometimes I forget I'm watching Christian Bale. I think he takes on those roles very well, and you get lost in the role.
Yeah, so like we give him shit for like yelling at somebody behind the scenes and whatever. He got a lot of flack for that, but in all honesty, the dude gets into his roles so hardcore that he wants to give his best performance possible.
Mm-hmm.
And he's probably one of the best actors of our time right now. When you look back at like his collection of work and like what he's done and the different types of things.
Yeah.
He's not pigeonholing himself into one character over and over again.
Definitely not doing that at all.
By any
means. And it's refreshing to see for actors these days.
Yeah, I mean, like you see Johnny Depp trying to do the same thing or something similar to it, but he just plays the quirky character.
Yeah, yes.
Just different quirky characters over and over again. So he's kind of gone that route. So it's nice to see Bale doing something different.
He's still shaking up. And I mean, even to that degree, Ryan Gosling does the same, I think, and he's taking on different roles, and once again, he does a good job in this.
He's very charismatic.
Yeah,
like when he's on screen and he has some good lines, he just rocks those lines.
Oh, he owns the screen when he does those.
Yeah, like he's a solid, charismatic guy that's on the screen that you just appreciate. Kind of like The Rock, kind of like
Dwayne Johnson. Yeah,
those types of figures. I think Gosling has that in him. When he has a good role or some meat to that bone,
very strong presence. Yeah,
yeah, he really knocks it out of the park. So it's just performances all around, man. I really can't give it enough credit to them.
Yeah, and like even Steve Carell, somebody who started out as a comedy actor. I mean, still some comedic scenes in this, but he really brings it in some of the more serious scenes, and like he emotes a lot and well.
That's the thing you have to do with like comedy, though. Like that's why some of the best comedians cross over to drama and do such a great job with drama because they're able to do that stuff. We've seen that time and time again in Hollywood, and Steve Carell is also owning that, and he was great in this movie. I really can't say enough good things about it, which is nice. It's refreshing that we have a movie that I actually really enjoy.
Yes. I enjoyed this movie on many levels because it was engaging and it had a message and it had commentary, and I feel that's important these days, and this is something we're not getting enough of.
Yeah, the storytelling and the pacing was good. You were constantly like on the edge of your seat, like, oh shit, what's gonna happen? What's gonna happen? Because there's so much shit going on.
You're just watching, You're watching these houses of cars be built. Pun not intended, because we're talking about the realty market, but right. Like you just know they're going to fall, and you think they are. You don't know what's going to happen. You're wondering what's going to happen, how it's going to unfold.
Yeah, and I think that they also did a really good job of explaining it by going and showing or like doing their own research. Like, all right, let's go down to Miami and see what the market is down there. And just go door to door and start talking to people who are in like foreclosure statuses and finding out like, these places might be renting or going up and down a block of these huge mansions or whatever.
And brings a very human aspect to it as well.
Yeah. And I think they did a really good job of capturing that so people could understand, like, oh man, that's fucked up.
And then after that, they go to Vegas to look at the other side of it, where you see all these deals going down and who are making these deals and these people and what they're thinking and their mindset of everything. And you're just like, the fuck?
Yeah, these guys are, they're buying boats. They're buying all these like crazy expensive shit. They're all about bragging. They're all about showmanship. Yeah. They're all about all that stuff, as opposed to understanding that once something happens to the market, or if something happens to the market, people suffer. They don't care about that.
Yeah.
They care about that dollar.
And they don't really feel like they're part of the problem.
And they don't even see a problem.
Yes.
I mean, in reality.
Yeah, and it comes to that one phrase, the snowflake doesn't feel responsible for the avalanche. You have, one person doing it is one person doing it. But when you have a whole society and whole sect of people doing it, it's going to cause devastation, and they don't see that. And it's the ignorance of it all, and this movie does a great job of just being like, hey, this is going on. People don't see it because people aren't looking at it. They don't want to look at it because they're too distracted by their money or their celebrity gossip and shit like that.
Or they just, they don't care about it. They're just like, fuck everybody else. I want money. And this is how I'm going to be making money. So, we're giving out all these loans or doing all this shit, and these people can't afford them. There's a reason why, FICO scores mattered. There's a reason why, like, for so long mortgages were like the safest bet because they were hard to get.
Yeah.
And then in that big boom that we had, all these houses were overvalued. All these houses were, anybody was getting credit. It's like those bad local TV shows that you see, like, no credit, no problem, come on down.
Yeah, shit you see when you're watching daytime TV, because, I mean, if you're watching daytime TV, let's face it, you probably don't have a very stable or reliable job. So did those things kind of leech off those people? I mean, I'm not saying that's everybody who watches daytime TV.
No, there's people on night shifts and everything like that. But like at the same time, that's a large part of the demographic might be people who aren't working or out of the jobs or whatever. So, if you're struggling and you need a car, you need something, you need whatever, like, no down payment, no problem.
Oh yeah, file for bankruptcy, it's fine, don't worry about it, it's cool.
Yeah, I mean,
we got you.
How many of those bankruptcy commercials did you see as a result of this, what happens in this movie?
Oh god, a lot.
You saw bankruptcy stuff everywhere.
I mean, I saw them before, but they popped up more and more after all this.
That became a money racket in itself after the fact, because once something happens, somebody has to capitalize off of it.
Oh, that's the way of the world.
Right. And these people were smart enough to figure it out, that there was a bubble, and that bubble was going to pop. And it was just really interesting watching our society from the eyes of these people.
Yeah, and it's weird also because you care about these characters and you're rooting for these characters, but at the same time, them being right is not a good thing. And it gets to the point where you have the two buddies, Charlie and Jim, I think.
Okay.
Or Jamie.
Jamie,
Yeah. They pull off this great deal and they're celebrating. Then you see
another character come in.
Yeah, and he's saying, no, this is not a good thing. Yes, you're making money, but you're going to be making money, and all these people are going to suffer when you make the money.
Right.
And it really humanizes everything and puts everything in perspective. Because, like I said, you're rooting for these people, you want them to be right, but them being right is devastating to society.
Right.
And it's a really weird perspective, and they balance it really well.
Yeah, they do a really good job of that balance and walking that line, because that's why I really like this movie, because it was exactly what I would love to like say to like people, because like every day you're watching all this shit on the internet, you're paying attention to all this other stuff, but there's so much other stuff going on behind our backs. Laws being passed, like just crazy amounts of stuff that's happening on a daily basis that a mass majority don't really necessarily pay attention to. It's just shocking to me, and it's upsetting. So watching this movie, I related to a couple of characters in particular, just because like their sentiments and their feelings were just like, man, I feel like these guys so much.
Yeah, totally.
Because of the state of everything, and that's why I related to this movie a lot more than probably a lot of people might. And that's why I really enjoyed this movie, because I had more relatable stuff to it. Because I watched the markets, I watched what happened after the markets, and what happened, like in terms of the events that transpired because of all this stuff that happened. And I'm just like, man, this is crazy that this is that's just going on.
Right, totally.
And it's acceptable as a whole to a society, because it's like, yeah, it doesn't affect me too much, so it doesn't matter. and it does matter, and it happens
They
because
don't see how it affects them.
yeah, it happens because that's how a lot of people think, and it's just unfortunate.
Totally agree.
You know, if we united, it'd be such a different thing. We wouldn't let that kind of shit happen, but we do. And this movie really hits it on the head in a way that is not boring, over the top, where you're just going to flip the channel.
It's not preachy by any means.
It has a really strong message to it,
Mm-hmm.
but in a way that you could understand it, and in an entertaining type of way. And this is one of my largest arguments that I've ever had. Like, if you have a great message, I think we talked about it during the Tomorrowland
Probably,
review.
yeah.
Like, if you have a great message, the sad fact of the matter is, if you preach that message, no one's going to listen to you. You have to put it in a form of media that people can consume and get that message in a dumbed down type of way that they can understand it. Then you can get your message across. If you wrote a 400-page book about the economic crisis, how many people are actually going to read that 400-page book?
Not many, because a 2-hour movie compared to a 400-page book, it's a lot less time. So
right, and then and you have to put it in that entertaining type of light to make it for people to digest that. So more people are going to get to see that type of movie. And even now, like, have you heard of this movie?
in passing, I heard about here and there, and it was just basically because it was getting buzz.
Yeah, it's getting buzz because it's a well done movie that has like characters or it has actors that you know.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not on every channel with trailers.
Oh God, no!
It's not marketed like The Phantom Menace was.
No, you're not seeing some big short grapes on the supermarket or anything like that.
Yeah, it's still, despite the fact that it's a positively reviewed movie,
it's not a marketable movie.
It's not, because people just don't care, and that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
That's the whole reason we're having this conversation.
Yes, that's the whole point of the movie, is people don't care, so they're releasing a movie talking about people don't care, but people don't care about it because, well, fuck it, they don't care.
Yeah, so I really liked this movie. I loved it.
Yes.
I was on the edge of my seat. There are certain things I do want to talk about a little bit in the spoiler section.
Okay.
So overall, what do you think?
Overall, this is a movie. This is definitely a movie I think you should watch. Period. Like, it brings to light stuff that has happened recently in our society, in our government, in our nation, to everybody, and everyone's being affected by it, and they're not aware or cognizant of it, and it's important that they see this so they get an understanding of what's happening, and they hopefully approach decisions they make in the future in a smarter manner. Yeah,
and that's the thing about it. It shows you a different side of life that you're like, oh, they would never do that to us. This is America, this is land of the free, home of the brave. That they're not that greedy. I mean, yeah, we see people profiting, we see the 1% and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, I'm still okay with everything, my debts, and I'm still living. I'm doing okay. Yeah. I'm not dying. I'm not on the streets or anything like that. But in reality, this is the shit that happens a lot. This is stuff that we've seen happening, and this movie paints it in a clear way that you could understand it. Like, look, man, this is what they do. This is the frame of mind. This is what happens. And you need to pay attention to that. For that alone, I encourage you to watch this movie. Not even going into the great cast, the great acting, the great and smart, sophisticated script, the way it dumbs it down for society. There's so many positives to this movie. But for the message itself, I hope that this podcast could change somebody's mind from just watching this movie and saying, all right, let me take a look. And they learn something that they didn't necessarily know.
Totally.
Or kind of didn't believe. But this is what happened.
Yeah.
I mean, not a lot of it's glorified. It's not glorified. It's not sensationalized. This is just shit that happened. Yes.
And painted in a very real light, and in and in more detail than you saw in the news outlets that should be telling us about this bullshit.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of fucked up what Big Bank did.
Not surprising that they did it, though. That's the sad thing.
And it's just, yeah, because, I mean, profits. Look at the profit margins on that shit. So, without going into details, I highly recommend this movie.
Totally.
All right, so how can we reach you, Alex?
You can follow me on Twitter. My name there is Alex Sandberg, AlexSanberg, or email me directly at the website, alex@lostlevel.com. What about you, Chris?
I am on Twitter, twitter.com/calmintensity. I'm on Instagram at Chris's Calm. Also, all of our social media sites our links are on lostlevel.com. In the upper right-hand corner, links to our Twitter, our Facebook, our YouTube page, which we're trying to do some cool shit on. So I'd really appreciate you guys subscribing and paying attention to that. Exciting stuff happening for Lost Level in 2016 that we'll be announcing hopefully soon. Just stuff is happening.
It's a matter of getting our ducks in line.
Yeah, it's like we had some stuff that we announced a little bit earlier. We kind of were premature in it. We were just working on all the details, and that's some
Life
stuff
happens, and it gets in the way and slows things down. But hey, we're still working towards that goal for you.
Yeah, so we're definitely doing that. So 2016 is a very exciting time for Lost Level. I'm really stoked about it. So we'll talk to you guys soon. Hang out for spoilers, and
thanks.
Yeah. And spoilers.
Spoilers.
All right. I love the breaking of the fourth wall. They started off perfectly with Margot Robbie in a bathtub.
Yes.
Explaining exactly the fundamentals of this.
It fucking got me to pay attention.
Yeah, it's kind of like when you search Reddit or Imgur and you have like random facts with hot girls in the back. As a picture of a hot girl.
Yeah.
And then you have like a random fact.
Yes. This is very much that. And it works and is perfect for this movie because they're trying to deliver you this intense information, this complicated information, and they need you to pay attention. So the best way to do it is get a pretty girl.
Yes, a very attractive girl in Margot Robbie. And that's the brilliant part of it too, because it's two-sided. Because like you're immediately paying attention to Margot Robbie on screen, like, oh, so you as a male you perk up. Shit, as a female you probably perk up too, because she's absolutely stunning.
Yes.
And then at the same time, they're giving you all of the information that you need to understand.
I got distracted by the information.
Yeah,
because I got that initial grab and like information. I'm like, oh well. That's actually really interesting.
And the other part of that's brilliant is it sets the tone of the movie.
Sets the tone, very tongue-in-cheek manner.
Yeah, it immediately grabs you, and then it carries you on for one fun ride.
And they do it again with the whole Selena Gomez thing. And once again, it's done in such a way that it makes what they're trying to explain, and they do it in such a way that is relatable and more understandable.
Mm-hmm.
With the bets on the bets on the bets, and once one of those bets go through, everything's going to crumble.
Oh, damn it. What's that guy's name? HBO news reporter.
Bill Maher?
No.
John Oliver.
John Oliver. Do you ever watch the John Oliver interview when he talks with Edward Snowden about like the NSA and the rights and everything like that?
Yeah.
And it's really technical shit, and John Oliver is so fucking brilliant. The way that he dumbs it down for society is he has to break it down into dick pics.
Yeah.
And he's like, do you want your dick pic everywhere? Because the government can see that.
Right.
That's when people will start saying, no, man, I don't want to see like people see my pictures and shit like that. But then when you explain it to them in the technical jargon, they don't understand it.
So if you give them this dumbed down manner in a way that they can relate to, they perk up and they listen.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what this movie does, and does it very well, because it makes us go, oh, I see how this affects me now. I see this affects me on a personal level, and now I care.
And it shows you like how in bed everything is, because once the shortage happened, the rates or the percent or the ratings on these things didn't go down, even though they should have.
Mm-hmm.
But they didn't, and then they explained it to him like, well, because they're in bed with them.
Yeah.
Because if we don't give them that rating, they're going to go down the street and get the rating from somebody else.
At the price that they're asking for, so might as well be us.
So we have to give them that rating. So like it's a racket.
Oh, totally. It's a total racket.
It's not fair. It doesn't make sense. It's based on nothing. Is on error basically. I mean, once the collapse happened, so many people lost their homes.
And they brought it back to that one family in Miami. That guy who's worried. It's like, am I going to have a place? And the guy's like, you have to talk to your landlord, dude. Like, call him, talk to him, because this shit's going down. And in the end, you see him moving with his family. They don't spend a lot of time up there. Like, yeah, this is affecting people.
But that's all you needed. You just needed to see him in his car with his family because they were homeless because of this. They were affected by that. The landlord, they were paying their rent on time to their landlord, and the landlord was just pocketing the money. You think that you're doing a great job by paying your rent on time. You're paying your bills. You got 2 jobs. You're working your ass off because you want to take care of your family, and that money just isn't going where it should be. Next thing you know, you got an eviction notice, and you're like, dude, no, man, I paid for this shit. And they're like, well, no, technically, you haven't paid for 6 months.
Yeah. Which is unfortunate because it's real people's lives are at stake.
Yeah, so that person could be a solid person, and they just get screwed by this because people just
wife, kids, whatever. It doesn't matter how hard you're working and how good of a person you're trying to be for society. There's going to be people that are a roadblock for you to do that.
Yeah, there's always going to be people looking to make a buck.
There's that middleman that just screws everything up.
And that's what we talk. I mean, not us necessarily, but like that's what we see as a society. We talk about the 1%ers. We see how there is slowly a deterioration of the middle class, and there's that huge shift going on right now. And it's a scary time when you just stop and look for a moment, and stop looking at Kardashian pictures and stop looking at the Golden Globes and who wore what, and just look at all the shit that's going on.
Ironically enough, after we watched the movie, I was going through my Facebook feed and they're like, here's Steve Carell and his wife looking so classy at the Golden Globes. And it's like, motherfucker, this guy was just in this movie talking about how we shouldn't pay attention to this shit.
Yeah, I mean, it's a sad thing. They have to play the thing. Like, you watch the Golden Globes. What is it really? It's a bunch of millionaires giving each other awards.
Yeah.
Why should, most of society give a shit about this person wearing a dress that a normal person will never be able to afford, or shoes that cost more than half a person's year's salary? Right. Like, it's crazy the fact that we idolize this shit, and it's unfortunate that it's never ending. It's never gonna stop. No. Because it just is not gonna stop until another collapse happens or something happens. It's
not gonna stop after that. That's the problem. Because they make a point. They're like, here's the collapse. Here's what happened. All these people went to jail. Nope. Kidding. One person went to jail. Everyone else got off scot-free despite all the fraudulent bullshit that they did.
Because the government did bailouts.
Yep.
And all of those banks who should have went bottom up, banks or institutions that should have been bankrupted for sure and shut down and never been existed again, got a slap on the wrist, got bailed out, and still do the same shit today. Yeah. They'll pass the stricter guidelines. They'll change some verbiage. And
exactly what happened. And they said at the very end, the banks issued these new things called this, which is basically the old thing that fell apart.
Yep. And that's just the sad thing that's going on. I mean, look at the market. I don't know. I'm a little bit older, so I remember that market, 2006, 2007, and watching house prices around that time, and just watching that market skyrocket. Mm-hmm. Houses, like the house that we're sitting in right now, I rent it from a family member, where they bought it for $35,000 more than it's worth today, because they bought it, around that time. Yeah. So prices were inflated. Now people have these houses that aren't appraising for nearly what they should be or were appraising for back in that day, and they're taking huge losses on it. Totally. And it's unfortunate to see that shit. Will our economy ever recover? Will we actually see places start to see profits again.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's a scary time
It
that we
is,
live in.
and you know, for me in a position where I am potentially looking to get a house at some point soon. It's like seeing this movie scared the shit out of me about the idea of getting a house and being in debt and getting loans. Like I'm still paying off a car loan. I'm still paying off my student loans. Like, hopefully, I'm going to be done with my car loan soon, thankfully. But I still had that student loan looming over my head. Am I going to want to put a loan for a house, a mortgage, on top of all that shit? And it's just like, it's really enlightening, and it's something I really have to pay a lot more attention to these days.
Yeah.
Because it can easily screw me or anyone here over.
Yeah, say the bottom, the market collapses. I'm in the same boat. I'm in a predicament where I need to either continue to rent or need to make or buy within the next couple months. And I've been thinking about it long and hard. I've been trying to think about different types of loans and what mortgages are and all that stuff. So I've been doing a lot of my research. And then I watched this movie, and it's like, yeah, man, like I never been.
Here's a whole world you weren't privy to.
I knew about it. Like I'm not dumb and naive. I did a lot of research on that stuff. So like I knew about that market. I knew about the bailout. I knew about like how the government really kind of made all that stuff. So I knew the end game of the movie, but I was still enjoying the movie, like just how much all that stuff was happening and finding out that side of it, where I knew the outcomes, but I didn't know this side of it.
Exactly.
So that was really interesting. Yeah, it's crazy just looking around. I was actually over at a restaurant with my parents last week. We were just sitting there, and from the window we were sitting, you could see the drive-through. And my dad made a comment, just a random comment, and he's just like, "Man, how does everybody afford all these new cars?" Because every car that was lined up in that drive-through were all brand new looking cars, like within that last 1 or 2 years.
Yeah, newer models and shit like that.
Mercedes, Lexuses, and brand new, like everything that's like, are people leasing these? Are people buying? Like, how much debt does an average person have nowadays that is comfortable for them to live? And like in their minds, like, it's okay for me to get this brand new car.
Mm-hmm.
Where I was like that when I was younger. Like I always wanted to get a new car within every 2 to 3 years. I've been driving the car that I have just because of personal situations. This is the longest car that I've had, and I'm still planning on keeping it for another, at least 3 or 4 more years.
Right.
Trying to get the life out of it. But yeah, it's a weird thing to watch because I just stop and look for a moment.
Yeah.
Next time you're driving, look around, see what kind of car people are driving, and you'll see a lot of people driving new cars.
It's weird, and it's just we've been conditioned to this point to think, yeah, I can be in debt. Who isn't these days? And it's like, oh yeah, I mean, a lot of people are in debt, but manage the debt. Don't put yourself in so much debt.
Yeah,
cut where you can.
We watch all this stuff on TV. We need to feel like we're trying to be somebody that we're not necessarily being, and we're living outside of the means.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to have the hottest fashion. We have to have the hottest cars and accessories and shit that we don't necessarily need.
Right.
It's a weird time that we live in. Like the fact that we're okay with all this debt accumulating and no one really thinking about what if we don't pay this off.
Yeah.
What happens?
Like in that scene where he's talking to the stripper and he was like, no, if this happens, you're going to be paying 200 to 300% more on your property. She's like, all my property? He's like, what are you talking about, all your property? He's like, I have all these houses. And it's like, it's that thing where just people don't realize what they're getting themselves into. And it's unfortunate.
Yeah, it's crazy. So the world could easily spiral out of control a lot more, I guess, easily than you would expect.
Yeah.
All it takes is one little thing to happen, and then the avalanche happens.
Yeah, I mean, Ryan Gosling's character explained it with Jenga pieces, and that's the great analogy for it.
Yeah, essentially, I mean that's the perfect thing. I mean, look at all the stuff that's going on right now with all the violence and and wars and terrorism and all that stuff. Like, take a moment and see the stuff that's going on. Like, it's kind of crazy. Don't just don't necessarily just log into Facebook and say, oh, my thoughts and prayers on this. It's an argument, or it's a conversation that Alex and I have a lot. But like, don't just do that. Put up like a flag supporting whatever cause because you're showing that you're like, oh, I'm an individual, I care, and then never doing anything about it ever again, or
Look
thinking
into
about
the
it.
subject and do research and
Like, why is that going
put your
on?
care into action.
Yeah, why is that going on right now? How can I help? How can I change things so we can try to work towards a better society and fixing that stuff? It's just like so much crazy shit's going on right now. And if you're not paying attention, the next thing you know, we can have another collapse. We can have more serious stuff happen.
Mm-hmm.
And this movie was great in giving you a prime example of what can happen and what did
happen.
Right.
But just warning us that it can easily happen again.
Yeah.
And it probably we're still heading towards that direction.
And it did it in a great way. So like The Big Short is one of those movies of the year that I look back on and like, yeah, this movie had a great message behind it and something that we should pay closer attention to. Same thing with Tomorrowland, a movie that came out also this was 2016. No, this was 2015 movie.
Yeah, I think so.
So yeah, two movies like that we saw with like messages that were decent, stuff about positive, like paying attention to society. Like, we don't do stuff now, shit's gonna happen. Tomorrowland is a movie that was not necessarily critically acclaimed by any means. A lot of people didn't really care about it, but the message behind it was really solid.
Correct.
And it did a really good job in trying to do that in a dumbed down type of way so people can enjoy it, like we talked about a little bit earlier here. And this movie, does the same thing. It shows you a truth. And
a truth that we may not be willing to accept, but it presents us with the facts and says, here it is.
Yeah, like I feel like our picture should be Margot Robbie in the bathtub explaining it, like Lost Level Roundtable review, so people will actually click on it and give it a listen.
I'll try to make that happen if I can find it.
So, I mean, in reality, that's exactly what would happen.
We'll get more clicks, definitely.
If we put a picture of Margot Robbie in the bathtub with our link to this podcast, I bet you we would have at least twice as many clicks on it, if not more.
Yeah.
Sad thing about our media.
Yep.
That's just a sad thing, but true. All right. Well, do you have anything else to say in the spoiler section?
No. I mean, it's really hard to spoil a movie based off of true events that recently happened. That's relatively fresh in people's mind.
Yeah, but you didn't know too much about it.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, it's just scary out there.
Yeah, it can be a very big, scary world.
One of the best horror movies of this year. Once again, we're into horror movies.
Yeah, apparently that's her thing this year.
All right.
Yes, thanks for listening, guys. Really appreciate it. Sorry we got a little preachy there, but in the end of the day, we're just looking out for your best interests, and we care about you, and we really appreciate you listening to The Lost Level. And
because we hope you care about us too.
Yeah, man, we definitely love you guys, and let us know if you guys have any questions or comments, or you think that we're full of shit. I'd love to hear that too. So talk to you guys soon.
Bye.